get ready for a journey to a world you might not even know exists. A world hidden deep beneath the surface, teeming with life. We're diving into Deep Life, The Hunt for the Hidden Biology of Earth, Mars, and Beyond by Tullis C. Onstott. And it's really a first-hand account of scientists venturing into the deep unknown to discover life in some of the most extreme environments you can imagine.
It's not just a scientific exploration, though. Onstott really brings a sense of adventure and personal experience to this story. He takes you right alongside him as he makes these groundbreaking discoveries.
So our mission in this deep dive is to unearth the secrets of this subsurface world. Like, how do scientists even find life miles below the Earth's surface? And what does it all mean for our understanding of life? Not just here, but potentially on other planets. I mean, did you know there are microbes living miles beneath the surface, thriving in complete darkness, intense heat, and crushing pressure?
Yeah, and some scientists even sterilize entire drill rigs just to get to them. It's pretty incredible.
Wow. So for a long time, the very idea of life flourishing miles beneath the Earth was met with skepticism.
Right. It just seemed too improbable.
Yeah, like down there, in the dark, no way.
Exactly. But some early scientists, even back in the 1920s and 30s, started finding clues. They discovered bacteria in some unlikely places, like coal and oil reservoirs.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Charles Lippmann, for example, found spore-forming bacteria that could withstand these extreme conditions.
That's impressive, those tough little guys just hiding out.
You'd think so, but a lot of scientists at the time dismissed these findings. They claimed that the bacteria were just contaminants from the surface.
Oh, so they thought they just hitched a ride down with the drilling equipment.
Precisely, and it was a valid concern back then. Sterile techniques weren't as sophisticated, and it was easy to introduce surface bacteria into these deep environments.
So how did scientists finally convince those skeptics that this wasn't just contamination? Like, how did they prove that there was actually a whole ecosystem thriving deep underground?
Well, that's where Tullis Onstott, our book's author, really comes into the picture. He's a leading figure in subsurface microbiology, and he wasn't going to let these discoveries be ignored. He decided to go big. Think Jurassic Park, but instead of dinosaurs, we're talking ancient bacteria.
Okay, now you've got my attention. Ancient bacteria, tell me more.
So Onstott and his team launched this ambitious project to drill into Triassic-era sediments in Virginia. We're talking sediments laid down when dinosaurs roamed the Earth, going thousands of feet below the surface. And to make absolutely sure they weren't contaminating their samples, they went to extraordinary lengths to sterilize their massive drill rig.
Wow. Sterilizing a giant drill rig, that must have been quite the operation.
Oh, absolutely. But it was crucial to their mission. And their efforts paid off. They discovered a bacterium they named Bacillus infernus.
Bacillus infernus. Infernus makes me think of inferno. Was this bacterium living in some sort of fiery underworld?
Well, not fire exactly, but the name is fitting. Remember, these sediments were incredibly old, and this bacterium, Bacillus infernus, was anaerobic, meaning it lived without oxygen, thriving in this ancient, oxygen-deprived environment.
So finding this ancient bacteria deep underground, that must have been pretty convincing evidence for the existence of deep life, right?
You'd think so. It was a major breakthrough. But believe it or not, the discovery sparked a whole new debate. This time, it wasn't just about contamination. It was about the potential consequences of unearthing these ancient organisms.
Oh, I see. People were worried about disturbing these ancient ecosystems, maybe even releasing something harmful.
Exactly. It raised a lot of questions about the ethics and safety of deep life research. And this concern for responsible exploration became even more critical as Onstott's research expanded to even more extreme locations.
Okay, so where did Onstott's search for depth life take him next?
Well, the Triassic Park project was just the beginning. He went on to explore all sorts of fascinating and extreme environments. Cerro Negro, an extinct volcano in New Mexico, and even a site in Colorado where the rock had been fractured by a nuclear bomb test.
A nuclear bomb test site, that's taking extreme to a whole new level.
Right. And to ensure they weren't misinterpreting their findings, they had to develop incredibly innovative techniques to prevent and track contamination.
So, like, what kind of techniques are we talking about here?
They came up with these tracer techniques using things like fluorescent microspheres and perfluorocarbons, like a microscopic version of those glow sticks you take to concerts.
Oh, that's clever. So they could track the movement of materials and make sure nothing was sneaking into their samples from the surface.
It was cutting-edge science. And then there's the deathometer. a tool they invented to assess the likelihood of their drilling projects unleashing deadly microbes.
A deathometer. That sounds a little ominous. Were they really worried about unleashing some prehistoric plague?
Well, it was partly a way to quantify the risk, but also, a bit of a tongue-in-cheek way to address the very real public concerns about disturbing these ancient ecosystems.
I can only imagine the conversations around that. But Onstott's journey wasn't just about pushing the boundaries of extreme environments. It was about uncovering a whole new understanding of life itself. And that journey takes us next to a truly remarkable location: the deep gold mines of South Africa. These mines offer a unique window into the deep subsurface, allowing scientists to reach depths of over 2 miles.
2 miles down. That's deeper than I ever imagined. What was it like down there?
Well, Onstott paints a very vivid picture of the conditions in the mines. He describes the incredible heat and humidity, the constant threat of rock bursts, and the challenges of working alongside the mine personnel, navigating cultural differences and communication barriers. It's a whole different world down there.
It sounds incredibly challenging, but also a bit exhilarating. What did Onstott find in these deep mines? Was he looking for more ancient bacteria?
Well, he was looking for life, but what he found was something even more extraordinary. Within these mines, there's a thin, gold-rich layer called the carbon leader. And within this layer, he discovered a unique ecosystem sustained by something truly remarkable: radiolysis.
Radiolysis. I'm trying to wrap my head around that. How can something live off of radioactivity?
Imagine you have life thriving in complete darkness, millions of years old, and it's not feeding on sunlight or organic matter, but on the energy released by radioactive decay in the surrounding rock. That's radiolysis.
That's incredible. It completely changes how we think about the possibilities for life. So what kind of organisms were living down there?
Well, it wasn't just one type of microbe. He found a diverse community of organisms, including thermophiles, which thrive in high temperatures, sulfate-reducing bacteria, and even species related to those found in deep-sea vents.
Wow. So a whole ecosystem, completely independent from the surface, relying on radioactive decay for energy. That's absolutely mind-blowing.
It really makes you rethink what's possible for life, doesn't it?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, think Mars and Europa, celestial bodies with icy surfaces, could this type of life exist there too?
That's exactly the kind of question Onstott began to explore. The discoveries in the South African mines opened up a whole new realm of possibilities for finding life in other extreme environments, both on Earth and beyond.
So where did Onstott's search for life take him next? Did he venture into space?
Well, not quite space, but he did start exploring some of the most extreme environments on Earth, environments that might resemble conditions on other planets. So I'm thinking about these microbes living miles beneath the surface, sometimes for millions of years. How did they even get down there? Did they, evolve down there?
That's one of the big mysteries scientists are trying to unravel. There are a couple of prevailing theories. One is that they were trapped during the formation of these deep rocks, becoming, accidental residents of the deep.
So they were just in the wrong place at the wrong time, geologically speaking, and they managed to adapt and survive over millions of years.
It's certainly possible. But there's another theory that's even more intriguing. What if they actively migrated down there, slowly but surely, over vast stretches of time?
So they went looking for a better life. It seems counterintuitive to think of these microbes moving towards harsher conditions.
It does, doesn't it? But remember, we're talking about incredibly adaptable organisms. They might have evolved new metabolic pathways, finding ways to exploit energy sources we wouldn't have thought possible.
Like that famous line, life finds a way.
Exactly. The more we learn about deep life, the more we realize just how tenacious and resourceful life can be. But it's not just about these hidden ecosystems. Understanding deep life has, far-reaching implications for our understanding of life on Earth and beyond.
Okay, I'm following you. How does studying these deep microbes help us understand the bigger picture?
Well, it makes us question everything we thought we knew about where life can exist. If life can thrive in the deep subsurface, fueled by radioactivity, with no need for sunlight or oxygen, it opens up a whole new world of possibilities for where we might find life, elsewhere in the universe.
It's like the search for extraterrestrial life just got a whole lot more interesting. We're no longer limited to looking for planets that look like Earth.
Precisely. We can now consider places like Mars, Europa, and even Enceladus, moons that were once thought to be too hostile for life.
That's incredible. And it's not just about finding alien life. Deep life research also has implications for understanding the origins of life on Earth itself. So how does looking at these microbes miles underground help us understand how life began, like billions of years ago?
Well, think about the early Earth. It was a very different place. Hot, volcanic, with an atmosphere thick with toxic gases. The deep subsurface, in some ways, might actually resemble those early conditions more closely than the surface does today.
So by studying these deep microbes, we're essentially looking back in time, getting a glimpse of what life might have been like in those early days.
You got it. It's like having a time machine to study the very processes that gave rise to life on our planet. But it's not just about the past. Deep life research also has potential applications for the future.
Oh, like what? What kind of applications?
Well, for one, there's bioremediation. Remember those microbes that can live off toxic chemicals?
Yeah, the ones cleaning up the mess after the nuclear bomb tests.
Exactly. Scientists are exploring ways to harness those extremophiles to clean up polluted environments.
So we could use these extreme-loving microbes to help solve our pollution problems. That's pretty cool.
It's a promising area of research. And then there's the potential for discovering new enzymes and molecules with applications in medicine, industry, even energy production.
Wow, it's amazing to think that these tiny organisms living in such extreme conditions could have such a big impact on our lives.
It is. And that's one of the things that makes Onstott's book so fascinating. He doesn't just focus on the science, you know. He takes you on a real adventure. You're right there with him, descending into the mines, facing challenges, setbacks, even moments of humor.
That's right. He tells a great story about searching for a place to house his team in South Africa and stumbling upon this unique restaurant called the Crocodiles in the Castle.
Oh, yes. With a larger-than-life owner, Pete Botha, who also happened to be the bartender.
It sounds like something straight out of a movie.
It does, doesn't it? It's that blend of science, adventure, and personal anecdotes that makes Deep Life such a compelling read.
And he doesn't shy away from the ethical considerations of deep life research either.
That's right. He acknowledges the concerns about unearthing ancient pathogens and stresses the importance of developing, responsible protocols, minimizing contamination, and being mindful of the potential consequences of our actions.
He recognizes that with great discoveries comes great responsibility. So we've talked about microbes, but what about viruses? I thought viruses needed a host to survive. Could they exist in these extreme environments too?
That's a great question, and one that Onstott tackles head-on in the final part of his book. Believe it or not, viruses are everywhere. They're in the soil, the oceans, even our own bodies. So it's not surprising to find them in the deep subsurface too.
But how can they survive down there in those harsh conditions, potentially for millions of years?
That's what makes viruses so fascinating, and in some ways a bit unsettling. They're incredibly adaptable. They can survive in a dormant state for incredibly long periods, waiting for the right conditions to reactivate.
So they're like microscopic ninjas, lying in wait for a chance to strike.
A very apt description. And once they find a suitable host, they can hijack the cellular machinery and start replicating.
So Onstott found these dormant viruses deep underground. Did he actually try to bring them back to life, so to speak?
Well, he didn't need to. Instead of trying to culture these viruses, which can be incredibly difficult, he used a revolutionary technique called metagenomics.
Metagenomics. What's that?
It's like taking a census of an entire city, not by interviewing each individual, but by analyzing all the DNA scattered around.
Okay.
In this case, instead of a city, it was a sample from deep underground. By analyzing the genetic material present in those samples, he could identify the viruses present, even if they weren't active.
So he was looking for their genetic fingerprints, even if the viruses themselves were dormant. That's pretty clever. What did he find?
The results were astonishing. He found a huge diversity of viral sequences, many of them completely new to science. It was like discovering a hidden library of genetic information.
Wow, a whole library of viral genes. What did those genes tell him?
Well, many of them had sequences that had never been seen before, suggesting, unique adaptations to the deep subsurface environment. It was like peering into a completely different evolutionary path.
That's fascinating. But it also raises a new set of questions. Were these viruses trapped down there for millions of years, evolving in isolation? Or could they move between the surface and the subsurface, like those migrating microbes we talked about earlier?
That's a question that's still being debated. It's possible that some of these deep subsurface viruses represent, ancient lineages, remnants of a time when viruses first emerged on Earth. They could be like evolutionary fossils. holding clues to the very origins of viruses.
So it's like a snapshot of early viral evolution. That's pretty amazing. But you mentioned the possibility of viruses moving between the surface and the subsurface. How could they do that?
Well, water can seep through cracks and fissures, carrying microbes and viruses between these different environments. There's even evidence suggesting that microbes themselves could be transporting viruses.
Wait, so microbes could be acting as like viral taxis, shuttling them back and forth between the surface and the deep?
That's one theory. And it had some pretty significant implications. If viruses can move between these environments, it means they could be playing a much larger role in shaping the evolution of, both surface and subsurface life than we ever imagined. It's like a hidden network connecting these ecosystems, with viruses acting as messengers.
That's mind-boggling. It completely changes our understanding of the interconnectedness of life. But this brings up another concern, doesn't it? I mean, if viruses are moving between the deep subsurface and the surface, what does that mean for human health? Could these ancient viruses pose a threat?
It's a valid concern. We know that viruses can jump between species, and the deep subsurface could potentially be a reservoir for viruses that could infect humans. But it's important to remember that not all viruses are harmful. In fact, many viruses are beneficial, playing important roles in ecosystems.
True, true. But still, it seems like something we should be aware of, especially as we continue exploring the deep subsurface.
Absolutely. Responsible exploration and careful monitoring are essential. We need to understand these viruses, how they function, and what their potential impacts might be. We need to approach this new frontier with caution and respect.
It's a powerful reminder that even in the most extreme environments, even in the darkest depths of our planet, life finds a way. And this life, from microbes fueled by radioactivity to viruses with never-before-seen genes, challenges our very definition of what life is and where it can exist.
It forces us to reconsider our assumptions about the limits of life, both on Earth and beyond.
And that's one of the most compelling takeaways from Deep Life. It's a call to explore, to question, to delve into the mysteries of the unseen world.
It's a reminder that there's still so much out there to discover, hidden beneath the surface, just waiting to be uncovered.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling inspired to learn more, and I'm sure our listeners are too.
It's a fascinating field, constantly evolving with each new discovery.
Deep Life is a great starting point for anyone wanting to dive deeper into this hidden world. It's a thrilling journey into the deep unknown. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Deep Life. We'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration into the world of knowledge. Until next time, stay curious.